Welcome to this message from the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock in Manhasset, New York. I'm Reverend Jaye Brooks. This month, our learning and worship theme is story. So each Wednesday, I'm sharing one of my favorite stories. One of the great things about stories is that they pass along bits of life learning in a way that's easy to remember and to share. Today's story is from Reverend David McDowell, minister of music at the United Methodist Church in Stewartstown, Pennsylvania, and David, as it happens, directs the choir in which my brother sings. David has a penchant for sharing stories with his choir members, improbable but all too human stories from his own life experience. Over the years, I've reveled in his true life tales. One of the great things about David is that he doesn't hesitate to share the ludicrous and embarrassing moments in his life, not if by sharing he can also share one of his own life lessons. Today's story is no exception. Here it is, All the Time in the World by Reverend David McDowell. Good things come to those who wait. If that's true, do bad things come to those who hurry? Maybe so. One day I was deeply embedded in my work in the office when my stomach reminded me that I had worked through lunchtime. When I glanced at the clock, I also realized that I only had 20 minutes before my first music student came for lessons. Knowing that I needed to get some nourishment before I began teaching the next 4 hours, I went to the local grocery store and purchased some soup to go. As I reached my car, I glanced up and saw a parishioner who I had not seen in a long time and knew that I only had a few moments. I put the soup in my car and went to greet my friend. After a few minutes of animated conversation, I ran back to the car, knowing that time was running out. As I sat down, I remembered 2 seconds too late that I had placed the soup on the bucket seat of my car. Now, I had never paid much attention in physics class, but I think I do remember a lecture about when a large force directly meets a weaker object in a collision. The result is an explosive reaction. This would be my rear side impacting a styrofoam bowl of chicken noodle soup. I lurched back upward as my friend drove off. I waved and smiled as the hot soup penetrated the layer of my pants. I looked down, and there, in the bucket seat, was this large puddle of broth and noodles, the steam still rising. Knowing that I now needed to make the 3-minute drive to my house to change my pants, I awkwardly lowered myself into the car. Let me say that I learned it takes some measure of strength to start a car while holding one's body in the air in a convex position. As I began driving, I also learned that one can develop a cramp in one's leg as one drives in such an elevated position. As I tried to fend off the cramp from moving into a full-blown contraction, I decided that hitting the accelerator might be a good option. I was only a mile away from home as I fought back the tears from the pain. That would be the same mile where the state trooper had decided to park and take a rest on this sun-splashed day. If there are 3 things that you don't want to experience simultaneously, my guess is that they might be the sound of a police siren, scalding hot soup on your buttocks, and a cramp in your calf muscle. He pulled me over within yards of my driveway. As he came up to my door, I would surmise that he was wondering why I was in an arched position resembling a gymnast on the high beam. As he asked for my license and registration, I implored him to first allow me to get out of the car. At first he hesitated, but I think the tears welling up in my eyes from the pain of the cramp convinced him. As I hobbled out of the car, he observed my soup-stained derriere and the puddle of chicken noodle soup still steaming off the seat. There is that moment of silence when one has no idea what the other person is going to say. I tried to break the awkwardness of the silence, but the gibberish that poured forth from my mouth could not have made any sense to any human being. As my foolish speech ceased, he looked me in the eyes and asked, "What, no crackers?" There is another moment that occurs in one's life when one doesn't know whether to laugh or cry, and one chooses instead to wipe the noodle off of one's buttocks. He left me with a warning, but to this day, I'm not sure whether the warning was about purchasing soup in styrofoam containers, or talking to long-lost parishioners, or driving with scalding substances wafting in your bucket seat. I am sure, though, that in the local police barracks, I became known by such nomenclature as Cracker Boy. By now, my student would be arriving for his lesson. I ran into my house, threw my trousers into the washing machine, and went to find a new pair. And just as I did, a thought came to me. Where's my wallet? There is another moment in one's life when one realizes that one is capable of performing multiple stupid acts within minutes of each other. This is the moment of humbling awareness. I returned to the office, now with a waterlogged wallet and still with an empty stomach. I find that when I feel enslaved to a busy schedule, I do the stupidest things. I say the stupidest things and think the stupidest thoughts. Busyness does that. It keeps us from focusing. It distracts us. It causes us to make bad decisions. That's why we are told to be still and know that I am God. It's only in the quieting of our souls that we can hear the voice that keeps us on the right path. May we take those moments to be quiet so that we know who we are in the noise of life. There was a message on my voicemail. My student had canceled his lesson. I had all the time in the world. I just didn't realize it.